Martin Amis, welcome to Cologne, and thank you for finding time to have a little chat about your writing and your new book. And of course, I have to talk to you about Jane Austen.
Of course.
What fascinates you about Jane Austen's work?
Well, it's partly because it was Pride and Prejudice was the first serious novel I read, and it was given to me by my stepmother. And after I'd read about 20 pages, I went into her study and said, "You've got to tell me, does Elizabeth marry Darcy, and does Jane marry Mr. Bingley?" And she was going to say, "You've got to find out for yourself." But I looked so desperate that she said, "Yes." And I not only recently did I see the trick of Jane Austen, and it only works fully in 3 of her novels. But what she does is she creates a hero and a heroine who are absolutely perfect for each other.
Yeah, you write about the 1970s also in your novel, when there's the sexual revolution, when there's emancipation, and your main character is a man who seeks to find what's in it for him.
Yeah.
But there's not so much in it for him. Why were you so cruel to Keith?
Well, people have said of that book that, did you think the sexual revolution was a bad idea? No, it was a great idea, and it was necessary and inevitable, and it was the beginning of the rise of women, the real rise of women. So a marvelous thing. What I ended up stressing in the novel was the casualties of the revolution. The reason for this is that the main character's sister is taken from real life, and my sister died age 46. She was a casualty of the sexual revolution. She couldn't cope with the new freedoms. And so that has, of course, had a huge effect on me emotionally. So that's probably why I chose to stress that aspect of it.
What I also found very fascinating in the novel is the role of names. Yeah. Is that just my perception of names being so important?
I think names are very important. Most interesting novelists have very interesting names. It shows a writer's spirit, the way they name their characters.
For me, it also shows the love for detail of the language that we have just talked about before we started with the interview, that for you, language and words and carefully chosen words are very important.
Anthony Burgess, the author of A Clockwork Orange and other books, said that there are 2 kinds of novelists, A novelists and B novelists. The A novelist is interested in plot, character, psychological insight. The B novelist is mainly interested in words. I think all writers are more plot-driven now than they were a generation ago, because the history is speeded up. The very long, static, meditative, essayistic novel is dead. Novels are now much more streamlined, much more aerodynamic. They move forward much more swiftly now than they used to.
This novel doesn't move forward so fast. It moves forward in a very sinister kind of way, I find it.
Well, it's a as I read it, it basically is a sexual suspense story, because there's going to be a climactic sexual scene, but you don't know who with quite, or when, or whether it's going to be a disaster or not. So that's the only suspense, is who and when.
And what.
And what,
and how.
Yes. Now, I have to say that whether it's a success or not, this novel does have the main theme is the sexual revolution. So it is not irrelevant to bring in sex.
You are an observer, and sometimes you're very close, and sometimes you're just being shut out. But you don't know what happened.
There's a lot of thinking about sex, but only one
talking about sex.
And talking about it, but only one scene. Yeah. And the other thing, usually in a novel, when there's a sex scene, everything stops, really. The plot isn't developed. There are no surprises or revelations. You just have a sex scene, which is usually embarrassing anyway. But with this, the sex scene is surprising, and it does reveal character, and it does take things forward. So I hope that it works. But
one last question, because I was very keen on meeting you, because I've read that you are the bad boy of English literature, and now you sit there and we have such a nice conversation. Would you agree that you are the bad boy of English literature?
Well, I hoped that when my father died, 15 years ago, one nice thing would be at least they'd stop calling me the bad boy. And then when I had my first grandchild, I thought, well, at least they'll stop calling me the bad boy. But they haven't. I'm going to be the bad, 80-year-old. It's embarrassing. And but once they get an idea in their head, they stick with it right to the bitter end.
Thank you very much.
Pleasure. Thank you very much.